Welcome to the Winning with Shopify podcast. This is the podcast to help you scale your Shopify store into a money-making machine. The Winning with Shopify podcast is powered by Spec, who is the sponsor for this series. Get ready to take notes. Now, over to the studio.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. For anyone who's not tuned in before, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you tuning in. My name's Nick. I've been running the podcast for literally 3 years since last month. So 3 years of episodes. We've barely missed a week. So that is 150 odd episodes that I've recorded. And that's nearly 150 guests we've had on the show as well. If you're new to the show, you've got some catching up to do. And prior to myself was Caroline running the podcast from 2020 and June 2020 backwards as well. So make sure you go back and check out old episodes. Some of them are still relevant, and we've probably covered almost every topic you can imagine, but things are still evolving. So every reason to hit that subscribe button and stay involved. This week we are continuing our month on social media. So we're talking about all things social, from paid social ads to organic to how do you get your customers to engage. And most importantly, and we're going to pose this question to our guest I'll introduce in a second as well, how do you make money from social? So super exciting month. My guest is returning. I think Ben has been on the show actually more than any other guests now, apart from maybe a couple of my internal guys. But we're very delighted to welcome back Ben Leonard, who is the founder of Beast Gear, and he sold Beast Gear many years ago. He's a serial entrepreneur, a speaker, and soon-to-be author as well. So Ben, welcome back to the show.
Hey Nick, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Lovely stuff. Well, apart from all the things I've just listed there, why don't you give us just a little bit background to yourself, just to give a bit of context to all the stuff we're gonna talk about with social today.
Sure, yeah. So apologies to people that have heard me before. I'll try and keep this short. I got into e-commerce in 2016. Before that, I was a marine ecologist, so very different. I needed a boot up the arse to get me into e-commerce, and that came in the form of a heart problem. Had a bit of a health scare. Was signed off work, signed off my fitness hobbies. So while I was getting better, I started a fitness brand that was called Beast Gear. Turned out I was pretty good at that. Scaled that. We were doing $6 million when I sold it late 2019. And now I am building new brands. So I'm working on a parent and baby brand, which will launch on Kickstarter later this year. I co-own a sports brand, which sells in the US. Will come over to the UK soon, we hope. And I help other people with their exit strategies with e-com brokers. And I'm doing a bit of speaking as well. I just got back from a conference in London called Seller Sessions, which was great fun. And yeah, you mentioned their soon-to-be author. I'm just finishing off a book called Quit Stalling and Build Your Brand, and that'll come out in October. So
nice.
That's me.
Nice. So Ben is a busy man, for anyone that's not heard Ben on the show before, but plenty of experience across the board. Then to talk today, which we're talking about, is social. And the other lovely thing about Ben as well is if you check out Ben's previous episodes on the show, I can't give you the exact dates, apologies, but there are quite a few if you go back. But when Ben's been on the show, we've literally had a different topic, completely different topic every single time. Because obviously, Ben, you've run your own e-commerce brand, Beast Gear. You're helping other brands run. You've done exit strategies and all sorts of other stuff, conference talks. Ben is very well versed in so many different areas. So let's talk about social, Ben. So social is what we're talking about this month.
Yep.
First of all, let's start with the real basics, shall we? And kind of work our way up into some of the more advanced stuff. So with the basics, if anyone's not running any social channels at the moment, given that it's July 2023, what are some of the popular social channels that brands should consider? We won't say must consider, but should be looking at to think about advertising or starting to post on and build a bit of a community through?
Yeah, you should be looking at channels where your audience actually is. So, and actually just, a slight side note there is, well, we have to think about what is social media, because often people think, well, it's Instagram and it's Facebook and it's TikTok and it's Twitter. Sure. But is it Reddit as well? Right? Because, subreddits, they're very social places, aren't they? And if Facebook is a social media channel, well, we've got Facebook groups, and subreddits aren't that different to a Facebook group, really. It's a little forum, right? What about Discord? Does that count? I think they do. Arguably, YouTube is, because people can interact with comments. It's a social way of reaching your people. And arguably, a podcast is a social media channel as well. So I'm going to throw all of those into the mix, and there's plenty of
nice.
those too.
Good.
So it's important to have a social media presence, because it adds legitimacy to your brand. If somebody stumbles across your website, or perhaps you're selling on a marketplace like Amazon, they're going to go and look you up on social, or many of them will, to see if you're legit and see what kind of content you're producing. And if you, so first of all, you're going to fail that test if you don't show up. But then when you do show up in the places where your audience actually is, and you provide them with helpful, compelling, engaging, free content that genuinely adds value to their lives and positions your brand as an authority on the topic, demonstrate that your brand knows what it's talking about, then all of a sudden people are going to be that much more likely to get their wallet out and buy from you because they trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy about channels, actually. And I'd never thought of Discord and Reddit, which a lot of our listeners won't even know what Discord is. But certainly go and check out those channels. But I think, certainly looking at target audience, I guess the obvious one that springs to mind is there's some immediate B2C channels, aren't there? Like if you're a merchant trying to target just retail customers, you've got your Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, maybe. They're the ones that spring to mind probably quicker than most. Whereas actually, if you're selling like a B2B product, you need to be looking at things like LinkedIn, because that's where your buyers are going to be, and that's where they're thinking about the business product. And then equally, as you mentioned Discord and Reddit, you'd find a lot of gamers on Discord. And don't discredit gamers. We had the company Viral that make custom-made gaming computers on recently. And they mentioned Discord, actually. We weren't talking about social at the time. We were talking about retaining customers and keeping customers coming back. But they did mention Discord as a channel where they run competitions. They get gamers doing stuff to engage with those gamers. So when gamers are looking at new computers or upgrading something, Viral are front of mind. So I think certainly starting off and looking at the channels, we're not, and for everybody's benefit, we're not just talking about TikTok and Instagram here. This goes a lot deeper and a lot wider than that as well. Yeah,
absolutely. It needs to make sense for your audience.
And so I guess a good question, which might have a one-liner answer, or you might have something more in depth on this, is how do you work out where your target audience is? How do you actually look at your customers and go, what channels are you guys engaging on?
Sure. Well, there's a few ways to think about this. I mean, the first is hopefully you just know, because really, and it depends on the size of your organization, of course, but you ought to have a passion for what you're selling, and therefore you ought to understand who your customers are, and hopefully you've done some work already to take the base knowledge that you have, because you just know who your customers are, and actually build on that and develop a deeper customer avatar, and then build a brand avatar that reflects who your customers are and who they aspire to be. And when you do all that, you will know where they are. The other way is to ask them.
That was going to be my one-liner, by the way, which the obvious one is just ask them,
right? And then people will say, but how can I ask them if I don't know where they are? Well, okay, you ask the ones that you are in contact with, for instance, through email, or physically ask them. So, for instance, you have a knitting brand, right? Because you're passionate about knitting. Well, talk to people at your local knitting meetup and ask them what channels they're using, or email them. There's two great books on this subject. One's called Ask by Ryan Levesque, and one's called They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. Great books, really, about asking your audience and your customers and potential customers what they want, and giving them what they want.
Nice. And I think, certainly the feedback bit, I find, and I guess a slight sub-question on this then, Ben. I find that quite a few brands we work with, we almost write questionnaires for them and say, can you send these out to your customers? We also do a thing quite a lot on checkout. So once somebody has checked out, the order's in the bag, just pump up one question, just one question only. So you might have a bank of 20, but each customer only sees one of those 20 questions. And it might say, how was your buying experience today? 1, it was awful. 10, it was fantastic. And just have almost like a green and red. And it takes 2 seconds for the customer to just go, that one. And also, if it's in Shopify, you know that Joe Blogs has just bought these products and made this order. So Joe Blogs thinks your site's rubbish to buy from. So actually, you might change the email strategy. You might say, did you know you can order over the phone? We've got stores all over the country, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody might say the buying experience online was excellent. So now you're just going to push your next product at them, et cetera. Yeah. But my question to you, Ben, is a lot of the brands we work with, they have quite a lot of pushback about sending out a questionnaire or sending out questions to customers. And then when they do it, we might send out to like 10,000 customers, all bought recently, so they're fairly engaged. And we get like maybe 50 out of 10,000 actually fill out the questionnaire. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a good amount? Is that not enough? Do you think we need to sort of send it to one bit, an A/B test, and kind of optimize that process? What do you reckon?
I think the key is to keep it really simple. In fact, let me give you an actual example that we used to do with Beast Gear, and actually we're about to implement this with one of our new brands. And the reason I want to give you this example is I want to give people actionable stuff that they can do. So here's what we did. Beast Gear was a fitness brand, or is a fitness brand, and we had 3 types of customers. We had customers who were into strength training, customers who were into boxing, and customers who were into, for instance, conditioning or CrossFit type of things. And often we would have their email address, but we didn't know which of those categories they were interested in because they hadn't bought from us yet. So, they'd filled in a lead magnet or whatever, and we had their email address, but they hadn't bought yet. Now, I did not want to send boxing information to a strength training enthusiast because it's not relevant. We're going to end up in the spam folder, or our open rate's going to be poor, and that's going to then affect all of our email marketing. So very simply, in our welcome series, we had an email, and the subject line was, "Can you help me answer this?" And that's a compelling subject line, which gained an open rate of something like 26%, which is pretty good. And actually, it's very good. And then the email was very simple. It said, "Which one are you most interested in?" And 3 big red buttons. One said strength, one said fitness or conditioning, and one said boxing. And human beings love to click buttons. And what was beautiful about that, it was one question, right? It wasn't like, "Hey, would you like to fill in this survey?" Because nobody wants to fill in the survey. It was just, "Hey, can you answer this question?" And all they have to do is click a button. They've opened the email, they might as well click the button, right? When they clicked the button, that automatically updated their profile in Klaviyo, so I knew which topic they're interested in. So now guess what? Once a week, they receive my helpful, free, compelling, engaging, useful information about strength training, for instance. Now I can position myself as an authority on that topic, provide them with all that great content and value, and they're going to come back and buy from me. But something else magical happened. You see, when you click a button, you have to go somewhere, right? So where did I drive them when they click the button? They click the button, it updates the back end of Klaviyo for me, but also they landed in my chatbot, my Facebook Messenger chatbot, where they're specifically tagged for the category they've selected. So in this case, strength. So you've selected strength, you land in my chatbot, and it says, "Oh, hey, Nick, thanks for telling me you like strength training. I'm going to keep that in mind and send you strength training information. Meanwhile, here's a great article about deadlifts." And so you click the button in the chatbot and you're landed back on my website where I'm giving you a helpful deadlifts article. I've now pixeled you so I can follow you around the internet. You might buy from me there and then, but also driving all that traffic to that article helps to rank it in Google. So now we're going to bring in tons of external traffic leads as well to that website, that article, and make people aware of our brand. So it's like a triple whammy. I now can send you targeted information about what you're interested in. I've cross-pollinated you to my chatbot where I can market to you, and I'm ranking my articles on my website in Google.
Which is, in terms of somebody making one click, potentially a second click,
it's huge.
You've got so much fruit off the back of that.
Yeah.
And I love the fact you've made it simple as well. So I think a brilliant bit of advice. And I guess some brands will be sitting there going, "Okay, we don't sell a product that has such a community behind it like gym enthusiasts or fitness enthusiasts." The thing I always find with that, though, is there's always something, isn't there? There's always some sort of, whether it's interior designers and people want their houses to look nice, or it's avid barbecuers. We had one client that was selling outdoor lighting, and then when we sent out a survey saying, "What do you do in your garden?" and it was just an open text box. That was it. You've bought some lights from us. What do you do in your garden? We would like to know. And no one responded, so they sent out another one saying, "Funniest answer wins." And the prize was a £100 Amazon voucher.
Okay.
So now people are putting funny answers, but it said funny, but it has to be truthful. And about 60 or 70% of the answers included the word barbecue. So people are buying outdoor lighting because they like barbecuing in the garden. They need to see what they're doing. And then, of course, the next question we sent out, or the next theory was, are these guys barbecuing in the winter? Because you wouldn't need the lights on when you were going to eat dinner in the summer because it's still light.
Yep.
And then it was like, these guys are avid barbecue enthusiasts for the winter. So then they've actually developed their own thing, which they're launching in about 6 months' time, which is a whole enclosure that goes over any size barbecue with lights and everything all built in.
That's
so now
absolutely
means
fantastic.
which is like, and they were sitting there going, we never thought we were going to develop this. We used to be a lighting company.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've now built, and I said, you've just built a framework for your lights to light up the barbecue. So when you open it in the middle of winter, you're under a shelter, it might be raining, you've got all the lights, you open the thing, see the food, and there's 2 downlighters that specifically go on the grill, and you can angle them and move them. So you've now got this like
awesome.
mean machine barbecuing station. I won't say who they are because they're trying to patent the whole concept because they want to own the patent to it. But I think it's a similar process to what you were just explaining of like, they just asked one question, which then they weren't expecting. And I guess when you first launched that, you probably weren't expecting to learn as much as you did. And even those 3 groups of customer, you must have had to do something to learn who they were in the first place as well.
Yeah, completely. So it's doing the work to understand who your customers are by, asking them as we discussed, but hopefully because you have a good understanding of who your customers are because you're selling products that you're passionate about. But a great way to understand who they are is to engage with them on a one-to-one level. And we, even when doing millions of dollars in revenue, Beast Gear was doing that because the strategies do scale when you build out SOPs and templates and have a team do them. So for instance, in private messages, in DMs on social media, communicate with your customers and learn to pick out trends and understand what you're consistently seeing. So how are people using your product? How are they posting about it? What are they telling you in the DMs? And you can use that as well. This isn't all just about, people will be listening saying, well, this is talking to customers one-on-one in DMs is a heck of a lot of work just to understand a bit more about them. I want a direct ROI. Well, a lot of people get frustrated with social media because it's all about, I want to chuck in money and get more money out and see that direct ROI. And I understand that. But also you have to think about the compounding effect of consistently showing up. And when you do that, it's a bit like the compounding effect of putting money in a decent stocks and shares portfolio that will grow at a low but consistent rate over time. You're going to win rather than chucking it all in the casino. So let me give you another kind of example here of this sort of DM strategy and how it works and why it works. And hopefully people can actually go and immediately start actioning this, right?
Nice.
If they do want to see this in action. Here's what we would do and what I still encourage people to do. This works really well if you have a product that's quite photogenic or people generally would post about on social because it's something people are passionate about. Maybe you're really passionate about barbecuing. It can also work if you're selling a commodity, if you give your customers an incentive to post. So perhaps within the packaging, you tell them, hey, post a photograph or a video of our product and each month somebody will win, blah, 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 right?
Yep.
Then what you do is this. Somebody in your team messages everyone who follows you. They comment on every post about your brand that's tagged you or used your hashtags, and you message that person who posted. And when you message people, before you message them, you take 30 seconds to have a look at their profile. And then you send them a genuine message which shows interest in their life. So you might comment about, first of all, you're going to thank them for posting about your product. In my case, it would be, hey, you did a great job with your squat personal best the other day, right?
Yeah.
And then it might be, oh, I see you are in Edinburgh. That's my favorite city in the UK. Whatever, right? A real conversation, not some generic copy-paste rubbish.
Yep.
And have a back and forth and build rapport. Maybe answer some questions that they might have about, whatever topic it is. Maybe it's scuba diving or knitting or barbecuing, whatever. Offer them a deal. Because you're awesome, here's 20% off, right? Ask them to leave a review for the thing that they've already bought. Perhaps you could offer them to become an affiliate. When you turn your customers into affiliates using plugins like, say, Refersion, they might just refer a few friends and earn a few pounds or dollars, but hey, it makes a difference. All of this compounds. Here's a really fun thing that I like to do, which is instead of offering them a discount, give them a free digital product. So, for example,
Gotcha.
Here's an example let's say you've got a knitting brand, right? Somebody's bought your knitting needles on your website, in a retail store, on Amazon, doesn't matter, and they posted about it. You DM them and have that back and forth. And you say, hey, because you rock, I'm going to give you our digital knitting pattern for free. It's usually $20. Just click here. And you give them a link, right? And when they land on the link, it takes them to your Shopify site. where they can see the pre-applied discount. It's a direct link to the cart, and I can explain to people in a moment how to make that. And they can see the discount is actually there in the cart. You know, it was 20, it's now 0. All they have to do is put in their email address to complete the checkout. Mm-hmm. So, a couple things are happening there. They're going to love you and do whatever you want, and they're a fan for life. There's a compounding effect to that. You now have their email address if you didn't before. For instance, if they bought from you, say on a marketplace or in a retail store, or it was a gift. And if you want to, well, they've just completed a checkout. Now, they might not have paid, but of course, you might have one-click upsell by Shopify or another upsell app, and you can actually then upsell them on the back end. Bear in mind, they are aware they just got a $20 product for nothing. If you were to just upsell them on a $5 or $10 product, you've just immediately made some really easy money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact we're not talking about just posting a Facebook ad or posting a status up. There's so much more engagement, I think, to happen through social. And I think, as you're talking very, very well about, is upsells. Upsells are so important for this.
Yep.
And I guess that there is an element here of, for stores starting out, you almost just need to get enough traction that people start to talk about you. But you also need to give them, as you say, that incentive of here's the hashtag, post about this product, et cetera, to then have that engagement. So you need to sort of, and I guess you could almost look at it like a customer journey, couldn't you? It's like a domino effect of like, okay, we need to tell, first of all, they need to buy a product. So even if we're going to make a loss, let's get some products sold. Let's use Facebook, Google, something just to get some product sales in. Or we'll do a Kickstarter run or something just to get that happening. Then we can tell them to start posting on social as part of fulfilling those orders. Now they're posting on social, we can try and get, as you say, some quick, easy money of doing some upsells, engaging with them more, or even just sending them a message and telling them about something they probably don't know yet.
Completely.
Saying, by the way, our spring-summer sale goes live in 2 weeks. Make sure you check it out. 2 weeks' time, what are you going to do? Send them another message. Our spring-summer sale's just gone live.
Yep.
Let's get them buying another product.
Yep.
And one of our clients especially, they do really well actually. They only sell on the initial order full price. Mm-hmm. They never discount anything, but they always send out discount codes to existing customers. And not a lot of people are using them. So another thing we then started to do was to put time limits on them. And the other thing is we found the discount code on Hot UK Deals, which anyone who's in the UK knows. Hot UK Deals just post discount codes. It's a voucher code site. They post all the time. Anyone can post one as long as it's verified, et cetera, et cetera. And they were using the same code for all customers, and it was like 20% off was literally the code. So they've now started putting people's names in those codes, and they were like, oh, what a nightmare to manage. So we've got a bit of tech that can do that.
Nice.
But again, like we're talking about social media today, but we're not talking about posting statuses. We're talking about those DMs and actually little strategies of how do we engage with people and start conversations. And I guess really big question on this then, Ben, is a lot of people will be listening, and one of my first thoughts is, okay, it all sounds great, Ben, but that's a lot of manpower, isn't it? Person power, we say these days.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of people time to respond to the messages, manage them all. How do you start to streamline that, or actually it's worth the investment?
It's not as much as people think. It is worth the investment, and it does scale. So it's very simple. You build out, you teach your team what to do.
Yep.
Your, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the outcome ought to be. You give them templates, but remember the templates have to be customized because you're going to be showing genuine interest in each person's life and who they are, and build this into a standard operating procedure. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're working with talent from overseas with a different economy where the average wage is much cheaper, then this can work at scale, no problem at all. It's really worth it, and there is a real return on investment here. And actually, this can work really well for launching new products. So let's just say then you've been doing this consistently, and you've been building up an audience of fans who love you. Well, what I like to do is after you've had this conversation with this person, it's come to a natural conclusion. Go back to their post and save it to, if we're talking about Instagram here, for example, but this can really work on any channel. Save the post to a collection that makes sense. So for instance, for Beast Gear, let's say we'd been in the DMs with a customer from Italy who had bought a strength training product. That post would go into Strength Products Italy collection.
Yep.
A couple months later, we're launching a new strength product in Italy. What do? We go back to that collection, click on the post, click on the user, open the DMs, pick up our conversation. Hey, it's been a while. How's your training going? Loved your post the other day about blah, blah, blah. Have a chat. Offer them the deal on your new product. We've got this new weightlifting belt coming out. Would you like to get it for half price? Of course they would. Give them a deal. Boom. You've just launched this new product. You do that across everybody that you've been interacting with on social, and suddenly you've got your product out there in the world. It's going to get posted on social. You're going to get reviews, and you've done it for virtually nothing.
And I guess you're also training these people, and it's slightly trying to avoid the slight pun from actually training in the gym, but you're training these people to post on social, aren't you? Because they were rewarded previously.
Yep.
They're not necessarily expecting the reward, but you get them into a thing of like, oh, Beast Gear have just sent me another thing. I love their social. I've been talking to Jess in the Beast Gear social team. She's great.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even need to be a real person. You could just use the same name every time.
Exactly.
Which I think works really well, doesn't it?
It works so well, and you'd be surprised what people get passionate about. You know, we're talking about, fitness is a great one for this because people are quite passionate about their fitness training. But this can work for anything. You get people who are super passionate about, very niche gardening topics. I follow a guy who is obsessed with bonsai trees. And because
which are cool.
Which
they
are
cool
cool.
trees.
He's the reason I've now got 2 in my house. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. And there's a really big issue on Facebook, and it's probably a bigger issue for me than most, and just because this frustrated me, is on Facebook many years ago, when the moon was better than it is today, kind of thing, centuries ago. On Facebook, if you built an audience, you could send out a post, so you could just post organically, and your audience would see it. So it all sounds very simple. Facebook's changed, and the last statistic I saw was 5%. So if you say you have 1 million followers and you post on that, only 5% of your 1 million followers will actually see the post in their feed on average, which is a problem. And if you contact Facebook and say, how do I get this in front of them? They say, great, just click boost post, spend some money, and now everyone can see it, which then leads you to the point of, well, what's the point of having followers if I have to pay to reach them all anyway? It's a lot cheaper to email them, to SMS them, or, which is what you're talking about, Ben, which I think is a really good solution to this actually, is DMs. So if you DM people, say you've got 1 million followers, you could, depending on the algorithms, if Instagram would have an issue with it, I don't know. But you could DM, the first sort of 20,000 of those million people who, as you say, in your database have been tagged that, or whatever system, Klaviyo, whatever system you're using, have been tagged that these guys are interested in bonsai trees. That we're going to now send all these guys a DM about bonsai trees. We might give those first load of bonsai trees of a new type of tree we're launching. We might give them at half price, but it gets everybody talking about it. And we've cut through the noise now. And actually, we're not limited by that 5%. And we're also not paying for it apart from, as we were just saying, people's time and that sort of thing. So it's a really good way of, A, you're cutting through that because not a lot of people get that many DMs. And B, you're also getting around the issue of you're still contacting followers. And if you've got all your systems linked up, you can see how recently they bought from you as well. So you're not contacting people. They're like, oh, yeah, I probably bought a bonsai tree from you 8 years ago. I don't remember. I've changed my email address and I don't use social anymore. You can actually go, right, we're just going to contact people that have bought from us, not in the last 60 days because they're just buying anyway. We don't need to worry about those guys. But they bought between sort of 60 days ago and 200 days ago. So we've got that nice little window, and we look at the audience size. Is it big enough for this to be a good marketing exercise? But I think DM seems like a fantastic way to get around that issue on Facebook and Instagram.
It completely is. And people value when you pay attention to them. They've posted on social media in the first place because they want attention. And then when they get attention, not just from a person, but from the brand that they've posted about, it makes them feel really special. And that makes a huge difference.
And I think especially as you were saying earlier as well about the attention of it, look at what they're doing. So like a personal best, or with the bonsai trees, if you see somebody's been posting going like, oh no, part of my bonsai tree looks like it's dying, like what do I do? Sending a bit of advice out to that person, say, we saw your post the other day, this is what you need to do for it, or actually you need this spray, here's a link. It's like, oh, great, I've solved your problem and I've made another sale.
They're going to be absolutely blown away. I mean, this isn't really social as such, but it's the light bulb's gone off in my head because it's another way that you can, on a one-to-one level, blow your customers away, but you can really scale this up. So I started doing this before the WhatsApp API existed. But here's what I used to do. and it was a little bit naughty because I didn't use WhatsApp Business. I used a personal WhatsApp account. So what I did was I set up a WhatsApp account linked to my landline, which we don't use. And because it's on landline, there's no way that I could get the replies unless we were on WhatsApp web, okay? I used make.com, which used to be called Integromat, like Zapier, to pull the phone numbers out of Shopify orders and drop them in a Google Sheet, all automatically, no effort required. My team member would open the Google Sheet twice a day. And what would magically happen is a web.whatsapp link with the phone number appended would appear. All she had to do is click that link and a chat with that customer starts. And then she drops in a pre-recorded video that I recorded on my phone in my home office that looks really natural, that feels like I've filmed it specifically for you, having just bought from me, but I don't mention your name because I don't know your name because I filmed it once. And you drop the video in the chat and you write, "Thanks for your order, Nick." And the customer gets that and they are absolutely blown away. And now they have a line of communication that my team member can deal with and answer any questions, right? They feel special because they feel like they've just got this video that I've recorded for them. And we actually set it up so we could detect if they'd already ordered from us. And if they had, we sent them a different video that thanked them for ordering again. And if they'd order a third time, we didn't bother sending the video because that would just get silly. And people were blown away. Again, it does scale when we semi-automate it and make an SOP for somebody to do it. And that is how we absolutely crushed our competition, because they weren't paying this level of individual attention to people on social.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I've emphasized it at least twice already. It's a better way, I think, of using the social channels, which means you cut through the noise and you actually have a conversation with people. I think, like you were saying right at the start, there's definitely still a place, though, to be posting regularly, especially for a new customer. If you're looking at a brand and going, okay, these guys sell really nice knitting stuff. You always use the example of knitting, which is why I laughed when you brought it up initially. But these guys sell some really nice knitting stuff. They've got good Trustpilot reviews, but I want to check them out. You're going to go on their social pages and go, are they posting regularly? Do they look like real people? One of the things that I often look at when I'm sort of sussing out a brand to buy from, and I think other people must do this as well, is I always look, do they ever reply to these comments? Are they just standing there with a microphone just blasting stuff out on their social pages, on their Instagram page or on their TikTok page, whatever platform, LinkedIn, whatever we're looking at? Or actually, is this an engagement platform? Which reassures me as a customer, if I have an issue, they're going to respond to it. And it actually then trains me that if I do have an issue or a question or I love it, I'm going to tell them that on social and they're probably going to reply, which is equally as important. As you say that, people, let's face it, people on social want attention. That's why you're posting. You want some attention for something, or you want to tell people about something. So I think getting that response is really important.
Yep, I agree.
But I guess really big question, and I know we touched on just the always on, keep posting on it, don't expect it to drive lots of direct revenue to come in. But massive question then is attribution. How do you attribute? Obviously the DMs are simple because you can see I've made some orders, or you can see these people we did interact with on DM, this is how much they've spent. These people we didn't interact with on DM, this is how much they've spent. You can get those reports quite easily through Shopify or whatever systems you're using. How do you attribute more of the organic social posting to something on the basis that everybody listening, everyone running a Shopify store, we are business people. We need to make money. We can't be investing in stuff that doesn't bear fruit.
Yeah.
So how do you judge that from a new customer acquisition or repeat orders? How do you monitor all of that? How do you attribute some of your revenue to social?
I think it's easier not to. And let me explain why, right? If I'm driving down the motorway and I drive past a billboard for Coca-Cola, and then I pull into the next service station and it's on my mind that I buy a Coke, well, Coke can't attribute that to me right yet. One day they probably will scan my retinas or something. And nor do they care. All that matters is that they've assigned a budget to that top of funnel brand awareness because they want tons of eyeballs on their brand. Now I get it, right? Especially when you're starting out, you're watching the pennies, right? You want to be able to know that there's a return. That's fine. But as you're growing, you have to accept that you will have to assign a proportion of your budget to brand awareness campaigns, which are very difficult to attribute to sales. And you just have to accept that.
Yeah.
And I think that once you accept it and stop worrying about it, it becomes way more fun, right? Just stop worrying about it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess a sub question is what sort of percentage should people be looking at? Like, and does it change as you grow? Like, the bigger you are, is it now like 80%?
Absolutely,
and when you
it
start out,
does.
it's 5%.
It totally changes. When you start out, you know, when you very first start out, your marketing spend is not going to be top of funnel. Your marketing spend is going to be way closer to the bottom of the funnel, and you're going to try and get people in top of funnel through these organic, more nimble strategies, some of which we've already kind of been discussing. As you grow, you'll always still market down at the bottom of the funnel, but you'll start to move or add marketing campaigns further up the funnel. You might start with, you know, your budget for these sort of top of funnel campaigns might be really small, might be like 2%, and you just creep it up and up all the time, and constantly be analyzing what's happening to your numbers overall. You know, what is your overall return on ad spend, or ACoS, however you want to think about it, and what is your profitability overall. And you can then, you know, once you reach certain particular levels, you can play around with it. Well, let's drop the budget on this top of funnel campaign and see what happens. Give it a couple of weeks, and then let's put it up again. You know, it's one of these ones where there's no binary answer, or there's no simple answer. It's quite individual for every business, but I think the overall principle is the same. You won't really be doing this kind of advertising when you start, but as you grow, you will be, and you will be increasing the budget towards these, you know, types of campaigns where you can't attribute sales, and then you're just going to have to play around with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is a challenge. I mean, for everyone listening, like you just said, Ben, it is a challenge, because this is like the just throwing money out the window and hope someone's catching it, which they are.
Yep.
It is a challenge, but I think it's absolutely right when a brand starts out to go, right, we sell bonsai trees, and there's loads of people Googling bonsai trees, and there's loads of sub keywords on Google for different types of bonsai tree, or easy to care for bonsai trees, if that's a USP, because that's one of the reasons I don't have one, is the amount of care required. But there's all these niche keywords where these people are already at the bottom of the funnel, but there's only going to be so many of them. So at some point, you're going to have to start driving people in top of funnel they're going to take 3 months, 6 months thinking about buying this product. They're going to need little nudges from time to time to keep reminding them about this product to then buy, which is the brand awareness piece. And so I think, I think starting out with bottom of funnel, and we just need to get some customers and get all the other things we've spoken about today, the DM messaging, communicating with customers, asking them questions, getting them to buy a second time. All of those things should be a focus in the initial period. We've got a client that they're doing probably about 15 million a year in sales in pounds, and they've reached a point now where they've said, right, we're currently spending about 5 or 6% on brand. We're going to go 25%. So we're not changing our budget, but 25% now is going to be brand. And what we're starting to see happen, which is quite interesting, is, and we've seen this a lot before with other clients, is the conversion rates are going up on the other 75 because people now know who you are. And it's one of the reasons that for anyone who is nerdy enough to be playing with smart campaigns on Facebook and also on Google, it's one of the reasons that they've gone down the route of just give us your budget, we'll put it on whatever channels, you know, the different placements they call it on Facebook, or on Google you might use like Performance Max. It's like, just let us do the full funnel for you. And the reason they're doing that is because people used to run top of funnel and it makes nothing, and didn't attribute that to the bottom of the funnel was getting wider, and we're actually signing more customers because they know who we are now. So that's why they're going down that route, and it is effective. It really is effective. But at the same time, for a small brand with a small budget, it is difficult to do top of funnel, because people, because of your budget, they're only going to hear or see you or hear from you once, which then means you don't have that same engagement. It's not like Coca-Cola, where it is in every single shop almost across the entire world. You know, and there's a McDonald's on every corner of every city in the world. You don't have that reach yet. So actually being more niche and having a smaller audience and going bottom of funnel makes sense to start off with, I would say.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And when you take that approach, you'll find that it scales way more sustainably as well. And you know, another principle to think about, I think, is just this idea of just-in-time learning. Like, don't worry too much about these types of campaigns yet, if you haven't got there yet, right? Focus on what's in front of you now, and then learn about what you need to know about these other campaigns when you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Which also means like the quicker you start, and for anyone who hasn't yet, time's gone now. You need a GA4 profile. You can't use Universal Analytics anymore because it is dead at the time that this podcast is going out. So even things like that, it's the quicker you start actually recording data, even if, as you say, Ben, you're not going to learn from it yet. The quicker you start recording it, the quicker you can look at trends and go, we traditionally have always done this. We've made a change to our marketing, to the customer journey. Now this is what's happening afterwards. Having that before and after does give you some, some insight to actually what customers are doing. But I guess, okay, let's go on to our sort of final question then, Ben, final topic for today. If people are sitting there scratching their heads with social going, I don't know what to post about, my products are boring, I don't know how to engage with people, where do they start in terms of coming up with the content, either for DMs, for posting? How do you start to break down that and go, right, we now have at least one story a day that we can post? When I say story, as in one topic, not an Instagram story necessarily, but we've at least got one topic a day now that we can start pushing out that's not just buy this product, and it's also not completely unrelated or boring or not insightful to our audience.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, even if your product is boring, the chances are that there will be associated topics around the niche that you're in that are not boring, or they might be boring to me or you, but they're not boring to your audience. So focus on creating content around that. It doesn't have to be about your product. In fact, it shouldn't all be about your product. That's incredibly dull. Nobody wants to constantly hearing about your products. They want to have valuable information that improves their lives as it relates to your niche or industry. But you can always, there's other things that you can do, right? You can have fun polls or quizzes related to your niche. It doesn't all have to be just providing content, right? It can be fun stuff as well, engaging stuff. You can even, people are kind of sick of memes in a way, but if you can make it specific to your area and almost like jokes, right? You can make memes that will engage people. It's like, if you know, right? One of the fantastic things about the world that we live in is how connected we are. So, you could be an astronomy enthusiast from a small town in Nebraska, right? And like no one for miles and miles and miles is into astronomy. And you're like, people in your street call you the telescope guy, right? Because you stare at stars with your telescope at night. But when you log on to a Facebook group or a subreddit or whatever it is that where you're interested in this stuff, your friends from far-flung parts of the world engage with you. And so if you provide your people, your tribe, with could be quizzes, polls, memes, content that we've described before, whatever it is, even if your products are dull, that will work. So don't worry too much about that. And the other thing that I think works really well is documenting. So documenting your journey, explaining to people what you're trying to achieve. Whereas you're not some corporate behemoth, and even if you are a corporate behemoth, you can give people insider, interesting information. How we designed this product. Literally, this is how we have put it together. Something I'm doing for a product I'm working on with one of my brands is we have to pass rigorous safety tests to get this thing on the market. That's going to be content. We're going to film ourselves setting these products on fire and basically destroying it to check safety of certain aspects of it. And that will form great content that tells the story. So, hopefully there's a few nuggets in there that'll help people.
Nice. I think there's some really good stuff in that. And I think making it amusing. There used to be this whole thing, I can't remember all four of them, but there was a consultancy we used to work with that had these like 4 pillars of content. And one of them was entertaining. Another one was inform. And it's almost like going, okay, there's eight topics there if you do 2 a week. So it's 7 days, you do 2 on a Saturday because it's when we get the most engagement. So you then just go round the houses like, right, we need something entertaining twice a week. We need something informative. We need something, I think was beautiful was one of them, just something that's visually like, wow, that's quite cool. And I can't remember what the fourth one was, but the one that springs to mind is mouse phone cases, which is MOUS.
Okay.
And when you're laughing, we've all seen them, right? So they used to be one of our clients. They're a Shopify, I think they're on Shopify now. They used to be on WooCommerce, but we used to work with these guys, and they literally just, they put the phone, like an iPhone or something, brand new, in a case, and they go up as high as possible and they drop it. They throw it off a boat into an ocean. They set it on fire. They drive a tank over it with this to show how good these products are. The other thing as well is they do some of these things live. So they'll sometimes start a live an hour before they've even arrived at the place where the tank's going to drive over it, going, we've never done this before. We don't know if it's going to work. We're going to see, can our phone case withstand the tank? Another one that springs to mind is, will it blend? I mean, we all love those back when YouTube was booming.
Yeah, and he used to blend everything.
Every new iPhone.
The iPhone up,
and it was just that guy who's like, hey, and he's in his science outfit with his goggles. He's like, right, let's blend this thing. But I think there's so many different niches, and I think different competitions as well. I mean, even if, say, you sell something that's flat packed and just seems like a boring, normal piece of furniture, do a competition where you've got 10 of these each per contestant, and your customers can apply thinking, I'm good at setting up flat packing stuff. They can apply. It almost becomes like a live game show of like who can do the most flat packing in an hour, or building flat packed stuff. Yeah. I think there's so many good opportunities of things you can do that, let's face it, your products are cheaper to you than anyone because you're the one buying them in. So it's not an expensive exercise in that sense. No, it's not. But you've got content for ages now, and then you've always got the Throwback Thursday hashtag you could use every Thursday to go. If you did 2 or 3 of these a year, within 2 or 3 years, you've now got quite a few of these to post on different Thursdays. Here's a flashback to when we set one of our products on fire, and it took it 95 minutes to actually finally go out. That's how much energy was in these different. So it's stuff like that. But the amount of different stats you could pull out of just light, setting which is not very green. So you might not want to set everything on fire. But obviously, with you guys, you need to check fire regulations and that sort of thing. But I think there's loads of good opportunities. I think it's just about getting creative and look at competitors. Who's the competitors posting good stuff? Just copy them. If they're doing stuff where like they're interviewing a customer, why don't you interview some customers on Zoom and post videos about that, saying, we interviewed so-and-so about the new clothing we're providing, and they said this about it, and they said, oh, it's really good actually on a hot day. You don't feel too hot. It's quite breathable, even though it's actually a jumper. And I love wearing jumpers on a hot day. It's like, well, there's a niche.
Yeah,
a niche of people.
No, completely. I like that. Hot jumpers
Lovely.
on a hot day.
Yeah, well, drop me an email if you need any more, Ben. If I've had a coffee, I'm full of ideas. But
I'm not going to need too many hot weather jumpers where I am, I'll tell you that. Aberdeen is cold.
Indeed it is. But anyway, we'll bring things to a close there. Ben, thank you so much again for coming on the show. Appreciate your time. Thanks for everything you shared today.
Yeah, cheers, Nick.
Lovely stuff. And for everybody else listening, we're going to be continuing this series, obviously, for the whole of July, talking about social media. If you've got any questions, any things burning on your mind, do send us a message. Just head over to winningwithshopify.com, fill out any of the forms. There's an Ask a Question form on the website, so just fill that one out. Send us a quick message, and I'll ask one of our guests that particular question. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, and we hope to have you again with us next week. Thanks for listening.